Friends, we resume our reading of First Samuel. Please do take a moment to post a greeting, share a comment, let us know that you're here with us, and I encourage you to hit the like button on this video and subscribe to the channel if you've not done so yet. So let's start as we always do by taking a look at the big picture. And we are in First Samuel, so we'll zoom in here on First Samuel. Yes, this does include both First Samuel and Second Samuel. We are in chapter 17. Verse 31 is where we're resuming tonight. We're in the midst of the story of David and Goliath. Right up here. Yeah, that's where we are. So things are about to get interesting. Well, they have been already. David is very much on the rise. Saul has already started a decline towards his ultimate demise, his death, which happens late in this book. 31 chapters, we're in the 17th chapter. Let's take a look at the reading windows. Left-hand column, Complete Jewish Bible. The right-hand column, the New Revised Standard Version Updated Edition. So we've got a Jewish Bible and a Christian Bible side by side. I will primarily use the right-hand column to point out things that don't sound familiar to our Christian ears because they're presented in the Jewish Bible in standard Jewish biblical language style. And, well, sometimes these things don't match up. We've seen that throughout this book. We'll continue to see it here. Verse 31. So David is inquiring multiple times as to what King Saul has said he would do to the one who would face Goliath and defeat Goliath, the giant champion of the Philistines. Good evening, Anthony. Let's read, friends. David's words were overheard and told to Shaul, who summoned him. David said to Shaul, remember, that is Saul. David said to Shaul, no one should lose heart because of him. Your servant will go and fight this Philistine, this Philistine. Shaul said to David, you can't go to fight this Philistine. You're just a boy, and he has been a warrior from his youth. David answered Shaul, your servant used to guard his father's sheep. When a lion or a bear would come and grab a lamb from the flock, I would go after it, hit it, and snatch the lamb from its mouth. And if it turned on me, I would catch it by the jaw, smack it, and kill it. Your servant has defeated both lions and bears, and this uncircumcised Philistine will be like one of them, because he has challenged the armies of the living God. Then David said, Adonai, who rescued me from the paw of the lion and from the paw of the bear, will rescue me from the paw of this Philistine. Shaul said to David, Go, may Adonai be with you. Shaul dressed David in his own armor. He put a bronze helmet on his head and gave him armor plate to wear. David buckled his sword on his armor and tried to walk, but he wasn't used to such equipment. David said to Shaul, I can't move wearing these things because I'm not used to them. So David took them off. Then he took his stick in his hand and picked 5 smooth stones from the riverbed, putting them in his shepherd's bag in his pouch. Then, with his sling in his hand, he approached the Philistine. The Philistine, with his shield bearer, came ahead of him, came near and near to David. The Philistine looked David up and down and had nothing but scorn for what he saw, a boy with ruddy cheeks, red hair, and good looks. The Philistine said to David, Am I a dog? Is that why you're coming at me with sticks? And the Philistine cursed David by his God. Then the Philistine said to David, Come here to me, so I can give your flesh to the birds in the air and the wild animals. David answered the Philistine, You are coming at me with a sword, a spear, and a javelin, but I'm coming at you in the name of Adonai Tsevaot, the Lord of hosts, the God of the armies of Israel, whom you have challenged. Today Adonai will hand you over to me. I will attack you, lop off your head, and give the carcasses of the army of the Plishtim to the birds in the air and the animals in the land. Then all the land will know that there is a God in Israel. And everyone assembled here will know that Adonai does not save by sword or spear, for this is Adonai's battle, and he will hand you over to us. When the Plishti got up, approached, and came closer to meet David, David hurried and ran toward the army to meet the Plishti. He put his hand in his bag, took out a stone, and hurled it with his sling. It struck the Plishti in the forehead and buried itself in his forehead, so that he fell face down on the ground. Thus David defeated the Plishti with a sling and a stone, striking the Plishti and killing him. But David had no sword in his hand. Then David ran and stood over the Plishti, took his sword, drew it out of its sheath, and finished killing him, cutting off his head with it. When the Plishtim saw that their hero was dead, they fled. The men of Israel and Judah, got up, shouting, and pursued the Plishtim all the way to Gath, and the gates of Ekron. The wounded Plishtim fell down all along the road from Sharaim to Gath, and Ekron. After chasing the Plishtim, the army of Israel returned and plundered their camp. David took the head of the Plishti and brought it to Jerusalem. But he put the armor of the Plishti in his tent. When Shaul saw David go out to fight the Plishti, he said to Abner, the army's commander, Abner, whose son is this boy? By your life, O king, Abner replied, I don't know. The king said, find out whose son this is. As David returned from killing the Plishti, Abner took him and brought him to Shaul with the head of the Plishti in his hand. Shaul asked him, young man, whose son are you? David answered, I am the son of your servant Yeshai, Jesse, the the Bethlehemite. By the time David had finished speaking to Shaul, Jonathan, found himself inwardly drawn by David's character, so that Jonathan loved him as he did himself. That day Shaul took David into his service and would not let him go home to his father's house any more. Jonathan made a covenant with David because he loved him as he did himself. Jonathan removed the cloak he was wearing and gave it to David, his armor too, including his sword, bow, and belt. David would go out, and no matter where Shaul sent him, he was successful. Shaul put him in charge of the fighting men. All the people thought it good, and so did Shaul's servants. That, friends, is where we're going to pause right there. Chapter 18, verse 6. Good evening, Mom. Interesting thing to ponder as we depart from here, as we leave off. It's always interesting at this point. It's definitely interesting when we have read continuous. David is brought to Saul before this encounter with the champion giant of the Philistines. David is brought to Saul as someone who is able to play the lyre, to make beautiful music that will soothe the king's troubled soul when the evil spirit from God is tormenting King Saul, who has already been rejected by God. Saul comes to hold David in great favor. Saul makes him his own bodyguard, his own armor bearer. And at some point, obviously, David goes home. It seems we don't have a chronological read here. There's no other way to read it than not being chronological, not being in this order. Only it doesn't really get any easier if we say this goes backwards, because now here we've got on the battlefield David being presented to Saul, who sends him out, probably thinks he'll never see him again, because no one probably really thought that David would defeat Goliath, especially when David takes all of the armor off and faces the warrior Goliath not as a fellow warrior, but as a shepherd. Well, shock of all shocks, when David is victorious, Saul wants to know, whose son is this? Who is this young man? And so he meets, thanks to Abner, he meets David. And David and Jonathan are brought together. One of these two moments, in whatever order they happen, has to be missing something. I mean, really. It's just a little weird, but it is what it is. Well, friends, next time we pick up First Samuel, we'll pick up right there at verse 6 of chapter 18. Peace be with you all, dear friends. Shabbat Shalom.